The wind keened like something wounded as Jon Snow edged sideways along the ledge, his gloved fingers digging into the ice-slick rock. Snowflakes stung his eyes, half blinding him, and the drop to his left was a white nothing, a fall into forever. Ghost padded ahead of him with effortless, silent grace, white fur almost indistinguishable from the storm, only those red eyes burning like coals in the night. "Seven hells," Stone Snake muttered behind him. "This is no path for men." "Then be a shadow," Qhorin Halfhand said, voice calm, carried oddly clear through the shrieking wind. "Shadows don't fall, they cling." Jon could not see the ranger's face, only the black shape of him and the rope they all shared, each man tethered to the next. His forearms ached from clinging to the mountain, his toes numb inside his boots. He could not remember the last time he had truly felt warm. Ghost stopped. The direwolf's head came up, red eyes narrowing toward the cliff face where the ledge narrowed further, almost vanishing beneath an overhang of ice. The hackles along his spine lifted. "What is it?" Jon whispered. Ghost's only answer was a low rumble, not of warning, something else. Curiosity, perhaps. The wolf pressed his nose to the rock, to a dark crack where snow had not settled, and pawed once, twice. Bits of ice tumbled away into the abyss below. "Move, boy," Stone Snake called. "We've no time for sniffing rock." Jon's hand tightened on the rope. "Wait." He shuffled forward until he was almost pressed against Ghost's flank. Up close, he saw it. A fissure in the stone, just wider than his shoulders, black as a well in the heart of the mountain. A faint breath of air came from it, impossibly, not cold but different, tasting of dust and something old. "There's a passage here," Jon said. Qhorin came up, the ropes tugging as the line bunched. He leaned close, gloved hand feeling along the edge. "The mountain has many mouths, Snow. Most lead nowhere but the dark." Ghost wriggled sideways, shoulders bunching, and slipped into the crack without hesitation, his tail vanishing into the black. "Ghost!" The panic in Jon's voice surprised him. A faint echo of claws on stone, then nothing. "If there's a way, the wolf has found it," Qhorin said. "If there isn't, we move on." Jon's heart hammered. The thought of leaving Ghost swallowed by the mountain, trapped or falling into some hole, tightened around his ribs like iron bands. "I'm going after him." Even through the scarf and fur, he could feel Qhorin's inspection. "You're no use to me if you break your neck in a hole." "I won't," Jon said, and in the way of stubborn boys, believed it because he needed to. "We can't risk torches on the face. Inside we might. If it leads through, it could be shelter, could be a way. Could be nothing, he knew, could be death. But Ghost had gone, and that was the end of it. Qhorin was silent a long moment, listening to the mountain's voice in the wind. "Very well. Take a torch. Stone Snake, hold the line. If the boy yells, haul him out before the mountain eats him." It was madness, and they all knew it. Jon pressed himself into the crack, shoulders scraping stone, chest compressing as he wormed through. For a terrifying heartbeat he was wedged, unable to breathe, and then the rock gave way before him and he spilled into darkness. The mountain swallowed the wind. The sudden stillness struck him harder than the cold had. Ghost was a pale shape a few steps ahead, already turning to look back, eyes twin embers in the black. "Good boy," Jon breathed. He lit the torch with fumbling, numb fingers. The flame caught reluctantly, then flared, a golden shudder of light that chased shadows up into a vaulting ceiling of rough stone. The passage opened into a shallow cavern, its walls bearded with icicles, the floor ridged with old frost. Yet beneath the ice, something gleamed. Jon stepped forward, breath held. Obsidian, dragonglass, worked by some long-dead hand into knives and spearheads, scattered as if a chest had shattered here. They lay half-frozen in the floor, black and glassy, little shards of night. "Qhorin," he called, awe thinning his voice. "You need to see this." The others squeezed through the crack one by one, curses and grunts echoing in the confined space. Qhorin emerged last, straightening slowly to take in the cavern, his scarred face thrown into stark relief by the shifting torchlight. "Gods!" Stone Snake breathed. He knelt, prized a shard of black glass from the ice, held it up. "Dragonglass, and no mistake. Like at the fist," Eben muttered. "Only this is older. Feels older." The air did feel strange. Jon tasted it on his tongue, a faint metallic tang, like the air before lightning. The hairs on his arms prickled under the wool. Qhorin crouched at the edge of the dragonglass scatter, eyes narrowing. "This was left," he said quietly. "Not dropped, not spilled, laid." By whom, Jon wondered. The first men? The children? His gaze slipped to the far wall, where the ice was thinner. Under the clear glaze, he could just make out lines carved into the stone. Circles within circles, joined by twisting lines like roots or veins. The pattern made his eyes ache to look upon it. Ghost padded toward that wall. He sniffed at the ice, then paced along it, tail flicking, uneasy. "What do you smell?" Jon asked under his breath. The direwolf's lips twitched. His breath steamed against the ice, clouding those hidden circles. Jon stepped closer, torch held high. The flame wavered, guttered, then surged, burning hotter for a breath. The ice before him glistened, began to weep. A drop of meltwater slid down the wall, tracing one of the carved lines. Then another. "Careful," Qhorin said, but his voice sounded distant. The ice cracked. A jagged line shot up from floor to ceiling, the sound sharp as a sword being drawn. Jon recoiled, but the damage was done. The fracture spiderwebbed, the glazed surface splintering like glass. With a shudder, a sheet of ice slid free and smashed at their feet. Behind it lay a hollow in the stone, and in the hollow lay a stone. That was what his mind called it, but his body knew better. Stones did not drink the light like that, did not seem to pulse faintly, as if something within them breathed. It was the size of a man's head, black as obsidian but threaded with veins of deep, dark red, like fissures in cooling lava. Jon's throat went dry. "Is that?" "A rock," Eben said quickly. He licked his lips. "That's all. Just a rock some madman stuck in a hole." No, Qhorin's voice was softer than Jon had ever heard it. "Not a rock." Ghost had gone still. The direwolf stared at the thing with the intensity he usually reserved for prey or enemies. Head slightly lowered, ears pricked. Cautious, fascinated. Jon stepped closer without intending to. Heat poured from the hollow, subtle but unmistakable, like standing near a banked forge. In the Frostfangs, in this dead, frozen cavern, it felt as wrong and as right as anything could. His hand lifted. He did not remember deciding to reach out. The closer his fingers came, the more the thing's surface seemed to shimmer. Not with light, with potential. "Don't," Qhorin said sharply. The word sliced through the haze. Jon's hand stopped an inch from the shell. A faint throb met his palm, like the beat of an enormous heart buried deep within the stone. He swallowed. "What is it?" "In the old tales," Qhorin said, "the children of the forest worked with the first men, laying traps of stone and spell for their enemies. You see dragonglass and think only of spears. There are other shapes to war." "That's no weapon," Stone Snake said. "That's a curse." "It's an egg," Jon heard himself say. The words seemed to come from his chest rather than his mouth. Like in the stories, dragon's egg. They all stared at him. "Dragons are dead and gone," Eben scoffed, but there was unease under the mockery. "Were," Qhorin corrected, eyes never leaving the hollow. "The Black Brothers at Eastwatch tell tales, too, of a Targaryen girl hatching beasts of fire across the narrow sea. I took them for rumors. Perhaps I was wrong." The thought struck Jon like an axe blow. Dragons. Daenerys Stormborn, last of her line, stepping into fire and walking out with hatchlings clinging to her burnt skin. He had heard the story in snatches from Old Bear's ravens and from Sam's breathless retelling of sailors' tales. He had thought it nothing to do with him, but the heat seeping into his bones said otherwise. "Take your hand away, Jon Snow," Qhorin said. Slowly, Jon obeyed. The instant his palm left that unseen heat, the cold of the cavern rushed back in, biting to the bone. His fingers trembled. "What do we do with it?" he asked. "What we came to do," Qhorin replied. "We watch, we remember, and we leave the mountain's secrets to the mountain." Stone Snake nodded too quickly. "Aye, we can't haul cursed eggs and armfuls of glass over that ledge. We've a war to spy on, not relics to rob." Jon's gaze did not leave the hollow. The thought of turning his back on it sat in him like a stone in his gut. If this is truly an egg, it has lain here for 1,000 years or more, Qhorin said. It can lie 1,000 more. But the pulse, that faint, insistent beat, had felt like something waking. Ghost whined softly. They took what dragonglass they could reasonably carry, prying knives and arrowheads free of the ice, wrapping them in leather and cloth. Qhorin ordered the cavern marked in Jon's memory. The shape of the entrance crack, the curve of the ledge, the distance from their last camp. "For another time," he said, "when we can return with men and ropes and some notion of what we're stealing." They were halfway back to the opening when the torchlight dimmed. Not flickered, dimmed, as if the darkness itself had grown thicker, heavier, drinking the light. Jon turned. The hollow on the far wall glowed faintly, slow pulses of deep red bleeding through the shell. The air hummed. "Do you feel that?" Jon whispered. No one answered. The mountain had gone very quiet. Even the drip of meltwater had stilled. Then a sound came, impossibly distant and close at once. The soft, wet snick of something cracking. Without thought, Jon ran back. His boots slipped on the ice, shoulder crashing into the stone. The egg lay as before, but now a thin line split its surface, a jagged wound of dull red light. Another crack, another line. Hands seized his arm. Qhorin dragged him back, hard. "Enough! It's hatching," Jon said, breathless. His heart thundered in his ears. Nothing hatches in ice," Stone Snake snapped. "Not after this long." The lines on the shell multiplied, crossing and recrossing like spiderweb cracks in a pane. A low vibration thrummed through the floor, up Jon's boots, into his legs. The torch flames stretched toward the egg as if drawn. Ghost barked, sharp and startled, and the spell broke. "Out!" Qhorin ordered. No room for argument. "Now!" They left the egg in its hollow, its dim red glow chasing them into the crack. Jon went last. In the narrow passage, he had to turn sideways, dragging his bundle of dragonglass against the rock. Behind him, the cavern's light faded, or seemed to. He could not tell if the pulse he felt in his chest was his own heart or something else. The mountain spat them back out onto the cliff face. Wind slammed into them, tearing the breath from Jon's lungs. The noise was a shock after the cavern's hush. Snow swirled in furious eddies, trying to claw them from the ledge. "Rope!" Qhorin shouted, voice suddenly very mortal again. "We move!" They edged out along the ledge, the mountain at their right shoulder, the abyss at their left, each step a prayer. Jon did not look back. He told himself it was because the path required every scrap of his attention, every ounce of his care. But when they made camp hours later in a shallow hollow under an overhang, huddled around a stingy fire, the image returned. A black egg veined in red, cracking in darkness. Long into the night, even after the other snores had blended with the wind, Jon lay awake, hand curled unconsciously around the small pouch at his belt. He had taken one dragonglass dagger, just one, slipped it in when the others were binding their own bundles. The weight of it was comforting. Useful, he told himself. They knew the dead rose. They knew what killed them. But it was not the dragonglass his thoughts circled. It was the heat. Somewhere inside that mountain, something was trying to be born. Sleep, when it finally took him, came in fragments. He dreamed of heat and cold at war. In the dream, he stood alone in the cavern. The dragonglass had gone. All of it, melted into slick black puddles that smoked without flame. The egg was larger now, filling the hollow, its veins a molten red so bright they hurt to look upon. Ghost paced before it, restless, his fur singed at the tips. "Leave it," a voice whispered. He could not say whether it was Qhorin's or Old Nan's or Maester Aemon's or all three. Some fires burn the world, but Jon stepped forward anyway. He reached out again as he had in truth, and this time his hand made contact. The shell seared his palm. Pain lanced up his arm, white hot, but he did not pull away. He pressed harder, fingers splaying, and the egg shuddered under his touch. A crack split wide, and a sliver of blinding light poured out. Something inside opened its eyes. He woke with his heart galloping, his breath misting in the cold dawn air. The fire had burned low, coals pulsing like the veins on the egg. Ghost lay beside him, head on his paws, watching. "You saw it," Jon muttered, more complaint than question. Ghost's ears flicked. He huffed softly, as if to say, "Wolves dream of blood and snow. Not your cursed eggs, boy." Jon sat up, rubbing his eyes. He half expected to find his palm blistered, skin charred where dream had met flesh. But his hand was as it had been, raw from rope burns, fingers cracked with cold, no more. Still, the sense of something watching lingered. Not ghost, not the wind. By the time the sun had climbed, pale and weak, above the serrated line of peaks, Qhorin had them moving again. They wound deeper into the Frostfangs, down narrow gullies and over treacherous ridges, always seeking some vantage from which to spy Mance Rayder's host without being seen themselves. Days blurred into frozen monotony. The world was white and gray and black, snow and rock and the silhouettes of men. At night, when Jon closed his eyes, he saw red. At first he thought the warmth at his belt came from his imagination. Then, one night, huddled beneath his cloak while snow patted softly on the canvas of his half-tent, he reached for his waterskin and brushed the leather pouch instead. The Dragonglass dagger inside was warm, not hot, not burning, but warm, as if it had lain beside a hearth rather than in the heart of the wilds. He drew it out with stiff fingers. The blade gleamed dully in the lantern light, black as the eggshell, its edge catching the faintest hint of crimson. The warmth seeped into his palm, a slow, insistent comfort. He thought of the cavern, of the egg pulsing in the dark, of cracks spiderwebbing across its shell, of his dream. "That's mad," he told himself under his breath. "Rocks don't hatch in mountains, and they don't wake knives." Yet the warmth remained. The next day they saw the first sign of Mance's scouts. A feathered arrowhead abandoned in a drift. A half-buried print that might have been human or might have been wishful thinking. Qhorin grew more cautious, choosing paths that kept them under cover of stone, using ghosts to range ahead. The wild, the mission, the ever-present threat of the free folk should have filled Jon's thoughts as they always had. Instead, he found his hand straying to the pouch at his belt, feeling for that improbable heat. Something had changed when he touched the egg. Even if he had left it behind, it had not left him. They found Mance's camp at dusk. It sprawled across a broad, sheltered valley like some great, untidy beast. 100 cookfires smoking, hide tents thrown up in uneven clusters, pens for shaggy little horses and mammoths, the faint sound of drums and rough laughter carried on the wind. From their vantage point high on a crag, Jon could make out men and women moving among the fires, children darting like shadows. So many, more than he had imagined. "That's half the wild north, that is," Stone Snake muttered. "He's brought them all." "Not all," Qhorin said, "but enough." They watched in silence for a time. The free folk were no neat southern host with banners and drilled formations. Yet there was purpose in their chaos and strength. It rolled off the camp like heat, even at this distance. "They're afraid," Jon said quietly. Qhorin glanced at him. "You see fear. They gather because they fear something worse than us," Jon said. "Worse than the wall." Old Bear said as much. He thought of the dead men walking at the fist, of blue eyes opening in familiar faces, of the way the air had gone still in the cavern. "Perhaps," Qhorin allowed, "or perhaps they're simply tired of freezing and starving one by one in their lonely little bands. A king behind the wall gives them something to follow. Men crowd toward fire, snow, even if it burns them." Jon's hand tightened around the rock beneath him. Fire. There, Eben whispered, pointing. At the far edge of the camp, where the valley narrowed, a tall shape of packed ice loomed. An old rise, sheer-faced, now ringed with torches. Men were climbing it, hauling something heavy on ropes. Jon squinted, straining to see. It was a tree, or had been. A dead trunk, blackened at the top, its branches shorn. They planted it atop the rise and lashed it in place. A signal, perhaps, or a warning. Qhorin's jaw clenched. He means to move soon. We've seen enough. They retreated as the last light bled from the sky, careful to leave no trace of their presence. The path Qhorin chose skirted the shoulder of the mountain, then dipped into a narrow cut where the snow lay deep and drifted. Ghost went first, bounding through the powder, vanishing up to his shoulders in places. Jon followed, lifting his knees high to keep from stumbling. The cold seemed deeper here, the darkness thicker, as if the mountain pressed closer around them. The dragonglass at his belt grew warmer. At first Jon thought it was only the work of exertion, the way his blood pounded, the sweat prickling under his furs. But the warmth did not fade when they paused. If anything, it strengthened, a throbbing heat against his hip. Ghost stopped dead. The direwolf's body had gone stiff, every muscle coiled. He stared ahead into the falling snow, lips peeling back without a sound. "What is it?" Jon called softly. Ghost did not look back. His ears were flattened, his tail a straight line. The hair along his spine bristled in a white ridge. Qhorin raised a hand. The line stopped behind Jon, rangers melting into what scant cover the cut offered. Jon peered past Ghost, squinting, but the snow was too thick. Shapes moved within it, gray upon gray, indistinct. Shadows, he thought. Then the shadows moved against the wind. The first wight lurched into view, snow clinging to its beard and lashes, eyes pale and rimed with frost. It wore the tattered remains of what had once been a black cloak. His hands were livid claws. Jon's breath froze in his throat. He had seen them before at Castle Black and at the Fist. Seeing one in the open, in the falling snow, felt worse somehow. As if the dead belonged more naturally to the places the living also walked. Behind the first came others, some in scraps of wildling furs, some in nothing at all. They made no sound beyond the crunch of their boots and bare feet. Their eyes, those that still had eyes, glowed faintly with that sick, wrong light. "Back," Qhorin said, voice barely more than a breath. "Slowly, don't run." They sensed movement. Jon's hand found Longclaw's hilt. His fingers brushed the pouch at his belt. It burned. The heat burst against his skin like a living thing, urgent, demanding. The wights quickened. They moved without hurry and yet too fast, legs churning through the drifts with inexorable purpose. Some of them were missing parts, an arm, a chunk of shoulder, half a jaw, but they came on all the same. Ghost launched himself with a snarl that tore the quiet. He hit the first wight in the chest, teeth finding its throat. Blackened fingers scrabbled at his fur. The two went down in a tangle of limbs and snow. "Now!" Qhorin barked. Steel hissed free all along the line. Stone Snake and Eben surged forward to meet the dead, the narrowness of the cut forcing them into a brutal, confined clash. Longclaw leapt into Jon's hand almost of its own accord. The first wight he met had been a boy once, he thought. Its face was half caved in, nose canted sideways, lips gone. Jon's blade took its head, and the body staggered, collapsed. The head rolled, eyes still staring. Another clamped cold fingers around his arm, nails biting through leather. He jerked free, hacking, the world reducing to the slide and jolt of steel against bone, the reek of rot and ice. "Fire!" Eben shouted. "We need." The word never finished. Something pale and impossibly tall glided from the snow at the far end of the cut. The sight stole the breath from Jon's lungs. The other moved with inhuman grace, each step as fluid as a dancer's, leaving frost in its wake. Its armor was nothing like southern steel. No plate, no mail, but overlapping ice that caught the faint light and shattered it into cold rainbows. Its eyes were twin chips of the heart of winter. Qhorin swore under his breath. "Fall back," he snarled. "We can't stop that with steel." The other raised its spear. The air around it grew colder still, if such a thing was possible. The snow seemed to still midair, flakes hanging frozen for a heartbeat. The spear's point gleamed with a light that was not light, a pale, consuming absence. Jon had seen one once before, in the ring of fire, facing down Sam's Dragonglass blade. He remembered the way it had screamed when the obsidian pierced its throat, remembered the way its flesh had cracked like glass, falling away. His hand flew to his belt. The pouch felt like it held a coal. He ripped it open with his teeth, spat leather. The Dragonglass dagger tumbled into his palm, black and hot. It seemed to hum against his skin. "Snow!" Qhorin snapped. "Leave it!" Jon did not listen. The other's gaze had found him. He felt it, a weight like winter pressing against his bones. The spear came up. Ghost tore free of the wight he was mauling and bounded back to Jon's side, fur bristling. The direwolf's lips drew back, exposing white fangs, and he snarled, a sound that might have cowed a living man. The other did not flinch. He stepped forward. Jon's body moved before his mind caught up. He shoved Ghost aside, raising the obsidian dagger in one hand and Longclaw in the other. The heat pouring from the knife climbed his arm, licked at his chest, his throat. His breath came in short, white bursts. The spear thrust. Jon met it with steel. Longclaw rang like a bell struck by a hammer of ice. The shock ran all the way into his shoulder. The impact sent him stumbling sideways, boots skidding on packed snow. The other flowed after him. No wasted motion, no anger, no fear. Its eyes watched him with the calm attention of a predator that had all the time in the world. Thrust again. Jon barely got Longclaw up in time. The spear glanced off the Valyrian steel, carving a line of numb fire along his ribs where it grazed his furs. The world narrowed to the pale oval of the other's face, the glint of its spear, the burn of the Dragonglass in his fist. In the corner of his eye, he saw Qhorin and the others driving the Wights back, hacking and burning, trying to reach him. Too far, too slow. The other lunged a third time, the spear angling low for his belly. Jon dropped. He went to one knee in the snow, letting the spear slash overhead, feeling the chill of it shear a lock of hair from his head. As it passed, he surged up under its guard, shoulder slamming into the other's chest. It was like colliding with stone. Pain flared in his arm, but he held. He drove the Dragonglass dagger into its side. The sound was not a scream, not exactly. It was the shriek of ice breaking under unbearable strain, the long, tearing crack of a frozen lake in spring. The other staggered, that perfect inhuman poise shattered. Its eyes flared brighter, burning blue, then flickered. Fissures raced out from the wound in its side. Its armor crazed and splintered, shards falling away to reveal pale, rigid flesh already turning to a fine, glittering powder. The spear dropped from its hand, striking the snow with a dull, wrong chime. Jon wrenched the dagger free and stumbled back. The other took a step toward him, reaching, as if to touch his face, as if curious. Then it fell apart. Where it had stood, only drifting motes of ice remained, swirling in a faint wind that had no earthly source. The spear collapsed into a heap of brittle shards. Silence crashed down, sudden and shocking. For a moment, the only sounds were Jon's own ragged breaths and the distant clash of steel further down the cut. Ghost stood at his side, fur bristling, low growl dying in his chest as the last of the other vanished. The direwolf's red eyes tracked the settling dust with suspicion. Jon looked down at the dagger in his hand. The obsidian blade glowed a dull, sullen red from within, as if it held captive embers. The heat against his palm was fiercer now, almost painful, yet he could not bring himself to drop it. Behind him, Qhorin arrived, boots crunching hard in the snow. He stared at the empty space, then at the shards of ice on the ground. Slowly, his gaze moved to the dagger. "You killed it," he said, as if stating a fact about the weather. Jon swallowed, throat dry. The Dragonglass did. Like before. Before, it was some craven steward stabbed one in the dark. Stone Snake said hoarsely as he joined them, blood spattering his cloak. We saw this. Qhorin's eyes were colder than any wind. The egg, he said quietly. Jon stiffened. I left it. Did you? The ranger asked. His gaze dropped to the pouch at Jon's belt, to the faint red gleam seeping through the leather. Or did it follow? The words should have been absurd. Jon opened his mouth to say so, and stopped. His hand tightened involuntarily around the dagger, pulsed once, in his grip answering something. Somewhere deep in the mountain behind them, out of sight, something cracked again. He felt it like a second heartbeat, out of time with his own. We can't go back now, Stone Snake said. The Wildlings will be all around, and more of those things. You said it yourself, this was scouting. Qhorin nodded slowly. We move, south. The old bear must hear of this. Of all of it. His gaze lingered on Jon. You keep that blade close, Snow, and whatever it woke in you. Jon wanted to protest that nothing had woken, that he was just a bastard boy with a sword and a wolf and too many questions. But the lie would not come. The egg pulsed again, far away and yet inside him. The heat in his hand rose, licking up his arm, settling in his chest like a coal. He sheathed Longclaw, but he did not put the dagger away. He walked with it in his fist as they withdrew, Ghost at his side, the night closing in behind them like a great, patient mouth. They did not speak of the egg as they moved, but it hung between them all the same, an unvoiced weight heavier than any pack. Qhorin adjusted their route, angling more sharply south, away from Mance's camp and the cavern both. Jon knew better than to question him. Still, his thoughts circled back, again and again, like ravens returning to a single tower. When they paused to snatch a few hours' rest in the lee of a jagged outcrop, Jon finally slid the Dragonglass dagger back into its pouch. The leather smoked faintly when it closed around the blade, though whether from real heat or the ache in his palm, he could not be certain. He sat with his back to the stone, Ghost pressed close enough that their warmth mingled. Above, the sky was a bruised smear of cloud, the stars hidden. The world felt suspended, as if they moved within a bubble of waiting. What are you? He whispered, not sure if he addressed the egg, the dagger, or himself. Ghost tilted his head, then lowered it onto Jon's thigh, as if the question were not worth answering. Sleep came in fits and starts, prey to every shifting gust of wind. In one snatch of dream, Jon walked again into the cavern, but the egg was gone. In its place lay an empty shell, split into ragged halves, smoked black on the inside. Frost crept over the broken edges, already reclaiming what had stirred. Footprints, three-toed, long and sharp, led away into the darkness. In another dream, he stood atop the wall, but the ice beneath his feet was warm and steaming. A shadow passed overhead, vast wings blotting out the sun. When he looked up, he saw only bright, burning eyes and teeth like swords. He woke with his hand clenched convulsively around the pouch at his belt. The leather felt hotter still. His skin beneath it ached as if bruised. Qhorin watched him from the other side of the small fire, eyes hooded. You talk in your sleep, the ranger said. What did I say? Names. Qhorin's gaze did not waver. Ones I do not know. Ones that sound like they belong in Valyria. A shiver rolled down Jon's spine, unrelated to the cold. I don't speak Valyrian. Your blood might, Qhorin said quietly. Targaryens were not the only dragon lords. They were simply the last. Jon flinched as if struck. He had never spoken his father's secret aloud, not to anyone but himself, in the silence of his own skull. Even then, it felt like treason. I'm Ned Stark's bastard, he said, but the words came out thin. You're Ned Stark something, Qhorin allowed. That much I believe, but there's more in you than Winterfell's stone. I see it in your eyes when the firelight hits them. I heard it when you named that egg. Jon looked away into the dark. He wanted to deny it, to speak of honor and duty and the vows he had taken, simple and clean as snow. But the truth was Messier. Blood always was. "If there is more," he said, voice low, "what good is it on this side of the wall? What good are eggs that hatch in empty mountains while the realm sleeps?" "Perhaps none," Qhorin said. "Perhaps all. That's for other men to decide, if we live to tell them. For tonight, your task is simple. You breathe. You keep your wits. You keep that wolf and that knife close." He tossed Jon a strip of dried meat. "And you stop talking in strange tongues if you can manage it. It unsettles the men." Jon managed a weak snort. "Yes, Qhorin." The ranger grunted, satisfied enough. "Rest. We move at first light." Jon lay back, staring up at the blank, starless sky. The sense of something approaching, something vast and inevitable, pressed on him from all sides. Beyond the wall, his father had told him once, there was only death and snow and stories. Now Jon was tangled in all three. Sleep, when it came again, was thin as blown glass. He dozed in snatches, waking at every creak of ice, every shifting of ghost's weight. When he dreamed, the visions were hot and sharp, full of red light and the beating of wings he had never seen. A word followed him through those dreams, elusive and insistent, in a tongue his waking mind did not know. By the time the first gray of morning seeped into the sky, his eyes felt full of grit. The ache in his limbs had settled into something dull and constant. Ghost rose when he did, stretching, jaws gaping in a yawn that showed every tooth. The world beyond their little shelter was unchanged and yet not. The mountains still reared jagged against a pale, cold sky. The wind still worried at the rocks, driving fast-flying veils of snow before it. But Jon felt the difference in himself as keenly as a new scar. The egg, the dagger, the others shattering. They had moved him onto a different path, though the snow beneath his boots might look the same. He tightened his cloak, checked the straps of his pack, and fell into step behind Qhorin once more, Ghost ranging ahead. Somewhere in the heart of the Frostfangs, a shell was cracking. Somewhere deep in the dark, something that had slept while kingdoms rose and fell was stretching cramped limbs and tasting the scent of a world it had never seen. Jon did not know that yet. He only knew that the wind smelled faintly, impossibly, of smoke. Dawn bled slowly into the mountains, a thin smear of color behind knife-edged peaks. The cold at that hour felt sharper than steel, slicing through wool and leather as if through paper. Jon Snow stamped his feet to stir feeling into his toes while the others broke their fast with tough jerky and colder silence. Qhorin Halfhand finished chewing, spat a scrap of gristle into the snow, and rose. "We part ways here," he said. The words dropped among them like stones into a frozen pond. Ripples of unease spread through the little band. Stone Snake straightened. "Part ways? We've wildlings to the east, wights to the north, and mountains grinding their teeth above us. You'd scatter us now?" "Not scatter," Qhorin replied. "Thin. You and Eben go west and south, skirt the valley, make for the Skirling Pass. You've sharp eyes. You'll see what moves below and be gone before they see you. Take word to the fist first, if you can, then to the old bear." "And you?" Eben asked. The half-hand turned his face south, toward the wall he could not see. "Jon and I will take the straight road. Someone has to draw Mance's eyes. Better 2 shadows than 4. Jon felt his heart kick hard once. "Me?" he said too quickly. "You," Qhorin said. "You saw the wildling camp. You saw the other fall under your hand. You've more to carry south than any of us." Jon's hand drifted of its own accord to the pouch at his belt. The leather was warm against his palm, even in this killing chill. Ghost pressed against his leg, red eyes flicking between the men. "If they catch us," Eben said, "they'll gut us and wear our skins." "Not both of us," Qhorin said. His tone was flat, matter-of-fact, more than any boast could have been. "They want live crows. They'll want this one most of all." Jon's throat tightened. "Why?" Qhorin's gaze moved over him, taking in the bastard of Winterfell in his black cloak with the dire wolf at his side and something hot and unnatural pulsing at his hip. Because he killed one of their cold gods, the ranger said. And because the wildlings need to believe in something as much as we do. A boy with a wolf and a blade that melts the night? They'll listen to that boy, or they'll try to break him. He stepped closer, his voice dropping low enough that only Jon could hear. You understand what I'm saying? Jon did. The knowledge came cold and clear, sliding into him as the wind slid through the pass. You mean for me to join them, to wear their cloak, eat their food, hear their plans, Qhorin said. To be their man until you're mine again. We need eyes in Mance's tent more than we need another sword at the fist. Jon's tongue felt thick in his mouth. And they'll just trust me? They might, Qhorin said, if you give them something they want. A crow who killed his own commander to save his life, perhaps. Treachery is their native tongue. They know its sound. The world seemed suddenly smaller, the mountains surging inward, the sky pressing down. Jon looked from Qhorin to the others. Ebben's face was bleak. Stonesnake's mouth had gone a hard line. They knew what Qhorin was asking of him. They also knew it was the only road that led south. Ghost bumped his knee, a low whine in his throat. What if they don't take me? Jon asked. Qhorin shrugged one shoulder. Then you die. But you die anyway if they catch us as we are. At least this way your death might buy something. And your life might buy more. He clapped Jon once on the shoulder, hard. Decide fast, Snow. The wildlings won't wait for your doubts. Jon swallowed. He thought of the egg in the mountain, of the way the Dragonglass had sung in his hand when it pierced the other's flesh, of a pulse in the dark answering something in his blood, fire in ice. The world he had known, of clear lines and simple vows, felt as fragile as thin frost underfoot. I'll do it, he said. His voice did not shake. They parted within the hour. There were no grand speeches, no embraces. Stone Snake gripped Jon's arm briefly, his fingers digging into the wool and leather. Keep that wolf between you and their spears, he said. And don't forget which fire you serve. Ebben only nodded once, the lines around his eyes deep. If you live, I'll expect tales, he said gruffly. Good ones. The walls hungry for stories that aren't about dying. Then they were gone, their black forms swallowed quickly by the broken terrain as they moved west. Qhorin and Jon turned south, Ghost loping ahead, their tracks soon the only scars on the fresh-fallen snow. With every step, the world seemed to empty. The sounds of other men faded, leaving only the wind's ceaseless hiss and the crunch of their own boots. The sky darkened by slow degrees as clouds slid in from the north, thick and low. The Dragonglass at Jon's belt throbbed a slow, steady warmth. Do you feel it? He asked at last. Qhorin did not look at him. I feel the storm, he said, and I feel eyes on our backs. Not that. Jon touched the pouch. The knife. It's hotter, since we killed the other. You killed it, Qhorin corrected. I just watched. Don't mistake my name for more than it is, Snow. Half-hand, half a use. Jon almost smiled despite himself. You used it well enough. It's not the dagger you should be fretting over, Qhorin went on. It's what woke when you used it. That egg you named delivered us a weapon. Or a curse, perhaps both. Either way, we've tied it to you now. The wildlings won't see a boy with a knife. They'll see something else. What? Jon asked, though he feared he knew. Qhorin walked a few more paces before answering. A sign, he said simply. Of which god I couldn't say. They descended from the ridge into a narrow gully where the wind funneled, driving the snow into their faces. Ghost vanished ahead, his shape dissolving into the white. Jon pulled his cloak tighter, head down, each step an effort against the drifts. They were halfway through when Ghost reappeared, fur clotted with snow, ears flat. He trotted back toward Jon, then turned, looking pointedly to their left. A low growl vibrated in his chest. What is it? Jon asked. Qhorin's hand went to the hilt of his sword. He smells something. Men, I'd wager. Or worse. Ghost moved toward the left-hand wall of the gully, where the snow clung in wind-carved waves. He dug with his paws, sending up flurries. The scrape of his claws on stone echoed oddly. Jon's breath caught. The angle of the rock. The faint seam, almost hidden beneath the snow. A memory of squeezing through stone into a cavern of ice and black glass. "The crack," he said. "The cavern. It's here." Qhorin came up beside him, gaze flicking over the rock face. Recognition sharpened his features. "The mountain's mouth," he murmured. "I had hoped we were well away from it." Ghost whined softly, pacing, casting his eyes up and down the pass. The direwolf's unease was contagious. Jon felt the hairs rising along his own arms, beneath layers of cloth. "If the wildlings are behind us," Jon said slowly, "this is shelter, and a secret way. They won't know it." Qhorin's lips compressed. He looked back the way they had come, then forward, where the gully narrowed further. The snow falling there seemed thicker, almost curtain-like. "They'll smell us in this trench as hounds scent blood in a ditch," he said. "Out here, we've no room to move, no room to fight. Inside, we've walls at our back and blades in our hands." "And the egg," Jon said. "And the egg," Qhorin agreed. He made the choice with the same swiftness he had parted them from the others. "We go in," he said. "If we're to meet Mance's dogs, better in a place we know." Better, Jon thought, in the dark with something that answered to fire. The mountains swallowed them again. Jon felt the familiar compression of stone against his shoulders, the moment of breathless confinement as he squeezed through the crack. Then he stumbled into the cavern, boots skidding on ice, and the world opened into shadow and glimmer. He raised his torch. The flame leapt higher than it had any right to, blooming in sudden golden ferocity. The light chased itself along the beadwork of icicles and into the depths of the cave, revealing once more the scatter of dragonglass half buried in the frozen floor. Ghost padded ahead, nose working, tail low. Jon's gaze was pulled, inexorably, to the hollow in the far wall. The egg had changed. Where before its veins had glowed faintly, a slow pulse like a banked ember, now they blazed with a deep, throbbing red. The shell seemed thinner, its black surface shot through with fine cracks that spiderwebbed outward from a central point. Heat rolled off it in steady waves, turning the air before it into a faint shimmer. He took a step toward it without thinking. Then another. The warmth curled around him, seductive after the merciless chill outside. It sank fingers into his flesh, tracing the line of his spine, loosening muscles drawn tight by days of cold. Behind him, Qhorin swore softly. "Seven save us," he murmured. "You weren't wrong, Snow." "It's waking," Jon said. The words felt too small for what he saw. The pulse of red within the shell matched the beat of his heart. Or perhaps his heart had fallen into step with it. Ghost's ears flattened. The dire wolf hung back, torn between curiosity and wariness. Jon reached the edge of the dragonglass scatter. He knelt, the cold of the ice seeping through his trousers even as the egg's heat washed over his face. Each breath tasted of iron and smoke. "Don't touch it," Qhorin said sharply. "I'm not a fool," Jon replied, though his hand itched. He could still feel, in memory, the burn of the shell against his palm from his dream. For an instant his skin seemed to remember that pain more vividly than any he had suffered waking. He looked up at the runes carved into the stone around the hollow. They seemed clearer now, the lines etched deeper, as if they'd drunk in some of the egg's fire. Circles within circles, intersected by jagged strokes that put him in mind of lightning and branches all at once. "What did they mean to do?" he whispered. "Whoever put it here. Hide it," Qhorin said. "Or bind it. Or both." Ghost suddenly whirled, teeth bared, facing the narrow crack that led back to the gully. A growl rumbled up from his chest, low and dangerous. Jon's hand flew to Longclaw's hilt. The dragonglass at his belt burned, a warning flare. From beyond the rock, faint but unmistakable, came the muffled crunch of boots in snow. A voice cursed, distorted by stone. Another laughed, harsh and wild. The wildlings had found their trail. Qhorin's eyes flicked from the egg to the entrance and back. The lines around his mouth deepened. "Well," he said quietly, "if we're to play at signs and wonders, better to have a fire on our side than behind us." He clapped Jon on the shoulder. "Remember what we spoke of. Whatever happens now, you live. You yield when I tell you, and you let them think you broke. That's your charge." Jon swallowed. His throat felt dry as old bones. "And you?" Qhorin Halfhand smiled then, a thin, wry twisting of his scarred lips that looked like it had forgotten how to be anything else. "I'm a crow in a dark hole with too many enemies," he said. "I was dead the day I climbed this mountain. Today I choose how." They did not have long to wait. The first wildling squeezed through the crack with practiced ease. A lean man in piecemeal mail and furs, a crude iron sword in his hand. His beard was plated with bone beads. His eyes were small and sharp. He froze at the sight of the cavern, then grinned, showing broken teeth. "Look what the crow found," he called back over his shoulder. "A nest." More followed. A huge man in a patchwork bear-hide cloak, his beard white as frost. A woman with a scar that carved a pale line across the bridge of her nose, spear poised in her hands. A youth with a foxtail tied to his belt. Half a dozen, then more, filling the narrow mouth of the cave, fanning out warily as they took in the ice, the Dragonglass, the two men in black. Bone rattled. The one who ducked in last wore a cloak made of ribs and vertebrae strung together, their yellowed curve clacking as he moved. Human skulls jostled on his shoulders, empty sockets painted with soot. His helm was a grinning, horned atrocity. In his hand he held a notched sword and a shield rimmed with finger bones. "Rattleshirt," Qhorin murmured. Jon had heard the name, a raider of some repute among the free folk, a man who took trophies from the dead and wore his kill like a banner. Rattleshirt's eyes found them. Well, he said, his voice rough with amusement. "The Halfhand himself. I'd know that ugly mug anywhere." His gaze slid to Jon. "And a pup. Thought you'd come alone, Crow." "This one's worth 2 of most men," Qhorin said. "He killed one of your little blue-eyed friends." There were mutters at that, not laughter. The wildlings shifted, glancing uneasily toward the deeper shadows of the cavern, as if expecting an other to slide from the ice. Rattleshirt snorted. "Lies. Old stories. Ask the way the wind burned when it died," Qhorin replied. "Ask what the snow did, or ask him." He jerked his chin at Jon. "Jon Snow, bastard of Winterfell." That name stirred them. A few spat, a few laughed. One woman with copper bracelets snorted. "Ned Stark whelped more bastards than wolves, it seems." Rattleshirt's gaze narrowed. "Stark bastard, is it?" His teeth showed again. "Mance will want to see this. A crow who crawled into the king's own mountains." "Take him then," Qhorin said, "if you can." He moved with sudden violence, sword clearing its sheath in a hiss. He slammed into the nearest wildling, blade biting deep into the man's shoulder, spinning him aside. Another rushed in, spear jabbing. Qhorin stepped into it, turned, and the spear's haft cracked against the stone. The cavern erupted into chaos. Jon had no time to think. Wildlings surged around them like a breaking wave, steel flashing, bone rattling. Longclaw leapt into his hand. A man in a bear-hide cloak came at him with an axe, roaring. Jon slid aside, parried, felt the shock up his arm, and cut low, hamstringing him. Blood slicked the ice. Ghost hit another raider from the side, jaws locking on his wrist. The man screamed, dropped his sword, went down under white fur and red teeth. "There's only 2 of them," someone shouted. "Kill 'em and be done." "Not the boy," Rattleshirt barked. "Mance wants talk, not corpses." So they would spare him, Jon thought, even as he parried another blow. Qhorin fought like a man who had already made his peace. Every stroke he took was placed to maim, to cripple, to slow the enemy rather than to survive. He gave ground only to draw his foes closer, hurting them subtly, always angling himself between Jon and the worst of it. "Yield," he snarled under his breath when he and Jon were back to back for a heartbeat. Remember, Snow, when the time comes, you yield. Jon's teeth ground together. The dragonglass at his belt burned like a live coal. The egg behind them pulsed faster, its light brightening, red veins racing. The mountain seemed to hold its breath. A wildling with a braided beard and twin knives came at Jon low, blades flashing for his belly. Jon beat one aside with long claw, twisted, let the other slide along the mail under his coat, still hurt like fire. He slammed his knee into the man's chest and brought the pommel of his sword down on his skull. The man crumpled. Another step back and his heel collided with something hard. Jon glanced down and saw dragonglass shards crunching under his boots, jagged and black. He had drifted closer to the egg without meaning to. It throbbed in his peripheral vision, each pulse of red light matching his breathing now. Faster, faster. A spear grazed his shoulder. He turned, blade lifting, only to see Qhorin there instead, parrying the blow meant for him. The half-hand's blade skidded off the spearhead, but not cleanly. The point glanced across his ribs. Blood darkened his furs. He did not slow. Enough! Rattleshirt's shout cut through the din like a whip crack. We're losing men to 2 crow whelps in a hole. Stop playing. He shoved his way forward, bone cloak clacking. Up close, Jon could see the sheen of sweat on his brow, the notch in his ear where something had bitten a piece out long ago. Those small mortal details made him more unnerving, not less. "We take the pup," Rattleshirt said. "The old crow's not worth the trouble." He moved like a man used to closing on prey. Jon's arms trembled with fatigue. His breath came in ragged gasps. Longclaw felt heavier with every swing. Ghost was bleeding from a cut along his flank, matted pink. Rattleshirt feinted left, then brought his shield around in a brutal slam. It caught Jon in the ribs, driving the wind from his lungs and flinging him sideways. He hit the ice hard. The world tilted. The pouch at his belt burst open. The dragonglass dagger spilled out, skittering across the slick floor. It came to rest almost at the egg's base. Jon scrambled, but hands seized his arms, pinning him. A knee dug into his back. He tasted blood where he'd bitten his tongue. "Leave him," Qhorin roared. He fought toward them, laying about him with wild, savage strokes that looked more like an animal's thrashing than a ranger's measured skill. 2 wildlings went down, one clutching a ruined throat, another screaming around a shattered knee. Rattleshirt laughed, breathless. "Look at the mighty half-hand," he jeered. Trapped in a children's hole, bleeding in front of his boy. His eyes shone with something like admiration twisted into cruelty. "You want him, old crow? You want him to die at your side?" "I want him to live," Qhorin snarled. He broke free of the press for a heartbeat, stood tall, sword lifted. His gaze found Jon's. In that instant, everything else faded, the wildlings, the cavern, the heat. There was only the man who had led him into the wilds and the boy who had followed. "Now," Qhorin said. "Yield." Felt like ripping out a root. Jon sagged in the hands that held him. He let Longclaw slip from his fingers, the Valyrian steel ringing against the ice as it fell. He bowed his head. "I yield," he forced out, the words sour as bile. "I yield." Laughter rolled around the cavern. "Hear that?" Rattleshirt crowed. "The wolf pup whimpers." He lifted his blade, pointing it at Qhorin. "You heard him, Halfhand. The boy's ours. Drop your steel or die on it." Qhorin did not drop his sword. He smiled instead, baring his teeth. "Then I suppose," he said, "I die." Qhorin moved before anyone could. He sprang, all his weight and will behind the rush, not at Rattleshirt but at the men holding Jon. His sword flashed, severing the arm of one at the elbow. Blood sprayed, hot and shocking against the icy air. The man shrieked and fell away. The second captor cursed and jerked back. For a heartbeat, Jon's arms were his own again. "Take me then," Qhorin snarled at the wildlings. "You want your crow trophy, here I am. Leave the boy." It was a lie and an offering all at once, and the wildlings smelled it. They swarmed him, half out of anger, half out of a predator's glee. Spears thrust, axes rose and fell. Qhorin was lost in a tangle of bodies and flashing steel. Jon lunged for him. A hand like iron closed on his shoulder and wrenched him back. Rattleshirt's bone shield slammed into his chest, pinning him against the ice. "No, pup," the raider hissed. "He chose his death. Don't insult it by whining." Through the gap between bodies, Jon caught flickers of Qhorin. An arm rising, blade punching into a belly. A boot kicking a man's knee sideways. A spearhead blossomed from his back. Then another. He staggered, but his sword did not fall until a wild swing knocked it from his grip. Even then, he stayed on his feet, blood soaking his front in dark patches. He turned, searching, and found Jon again. "Do it," he gasped. The wildlings parted just enough that Jon could see what Qhorin meant. Someone had put Longclaw into his hand. He did not remember bending to pick it up. He did not remember the weight of it returning to his grip. But there it was, dark against the ice. The direwolf's head pommel slick with someone's blood. His, Qhorin's, another's. It did not matter. "Do it," Qhorin repeated, and there was command in it that reached back to every order he had ever given, every lesson on the lonely paths in the snow. Or all this is for nothing. The world narrowed to the length of the sword between them. Jon stepped forward. The wildlings drew back, forming a rough circle. They watched with avid, hungry eyes. This was a show now, a spectacle. Crow against crow, master against pupil. The egg's light painted them all in shades of red and shadow. Ghost snarled, straining against the hands that held him fast. The sound cut Jon like a lash. Qhorin dropped to one knee. His breath rattled. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. "Remember your vows," he said hoarsely. "We are the sword in the darkness. Sometimes the sword turns on itself. If that's what the realm needs." Jon's voice broke. "I can't." "You can," Qhorin said. "You must. Let them see. Let them believe. Or you die here as my shadow." And the wildlings marched south with no one to warn the wall. He dragged in air, shuddering. "You asked once what you were, Snow. Bastard. Stark. Crow. I say you're need. And need is a hard master." His one good hand fumbled for Jon's wrist, fingers closing around it like a shackle. He pulled Jon's hand, the one that held Longclaw, closer to his breast. "Strike," he whispered, "and live." Jon's eyes burned. He could not see for a moment, only feel. The heat of Qhorin's grip, the cold of the sword, the blistering pulse from the egg behind him, beating in frantic tandem with his own heart. He thought of Winterfell, of Robb's grin and Arya's scowl, of Bran's eager questions. He thought of Sam at the wall, of Old Bear's lined face. He thought of the blue eyes of the other shattering under his dagger. He thought of the wildling camp below, a sea of fires and tents and fear. He brought Longclaw down. The blade slid in clean, Valyrian steel, parting cloth and flesh as if they were nothing. Qhorin's breath hitched once, then left him in a long, quiet sigh. His hand loosened on Jon's wrist, fell away. The ranger slumped forward onto the ice. For an instant, there was no sound. Then the cavern erupted. Noise crashed over Jon like a wave. Some wildlings hooped, pounding weapons on shields. Others spat on Qhorin's body or kicked it as if to make sure he stayed down. A few simply watched Jon with narrowed eyes, measuring. "Look at the pup," someone shouted. "Killed his own. Crow eats crow," another laughed. "Just like we said." Rattleshirt threw his head back and barked out a delighted cackle. "Well struck, little wolf," he said, clapping Jon's shoulder so hard it nearly sent him to his knees. "Mance will like you. A crow who guts his chief, that's a man we can use." Jon heard the words as if from a great distance. His arm felt numb. Longclaw's hilt slipped in his grasp. He forced his fingers to clench tighter. The blood on the blade might as well have been his own. Ghost snarls had turned to a low, vibrating whine, as if the direwolf could not understand why his boy had done such a thing. Jon could not explain it to himself. He took a step back. His boots skidded in something slick. Qhorin's blood, dark against the ice, spreading in a sluggish pool. Some of it had found a crack in the floor, a narrow, jagged line that ran toward the far wall, like a tiny frozen river. Jon followed it with his eyes. The thread of blood crept along the crack, drawn by some unseen pull. It reached the base of the hollow where the egg sat and vanished beneath it. The shell's glow flared. The veins of red that laced its surface brightened, angry and sudden. The hairline cracks widened with an audible snap. A sharp, metallic tang filled the air, mingling with the iron smell of Qhorin's life. "What's that?" a woman breathed. They all felt it then. The floor trembled, a faint, thrumming quake that shivered up through their boots into their bones. The torches guttered, their flames drawn toward the egg as if it were a great unseen hearth. Rattleshirt's grin faltered. "What did you crows do?" he demanded. Jon could not have answered if he wanted to. The heat pouring off the egg now forced him back a step, then another. His skin prickled. Sweat broke on his brow despite the chill. Ghost tore free of the hands that held him with a savage wrench and bounded toward Jon, placing himself between the boy and the hollow. The direwolf's fur stood on end, teeth bared, but he did not snarl. He stared, fixated at the egg. A sharp line of light split the shell from top to bottom. The sound it made was like all the ice on the wall fracturing at once. The world narrowed to light and noise. The egg exploded, but not outward as a bomb might. The shell shivered into 1,000 pieces that seemed to hang for an instant in the air, suspended in a shaft of blinding light. Then the shards turned to ash, drifting down like dark snow. Heat hammered through the cavern, a blast that drove men stumbling back, swearing. Jon flung an arm up to shield his eyes. The air tasted of smoke and something older, stranger, like the breath of a forge that had been cold for centuries springing back to life. Out of the glare, a shape uncurled. At first it was only a suggestion. A line of spine, a curve of neck, the glisten of damp wings pressed tight to a small body. Then the light dimmed, coalescing, and Jon saw it clearly. The hatchling was no larger than a hound, its body long and sinuous, limbs wiry and delicate. Its scales were black as midnight, each one edged in the faintest glimmer of red, as if outlined in emberlight. Its wings, still slick with the moisture of its shell, were a deeper, smoky shade, the membranes veined with glowing lines that pulsed with the same rhythm as the egg had. Its head lifted, narrow and angular. Horns like sharpened obsidian swept back from its brow. When its eyes opened, they were molten gold, slit by vertical pupils that narrowed against the torch's light. It inhaled. The sound cut through Jon more keenly than any spear point. It was a rasping, newborn drag of air into lungs that had never known anything but the enclosed warmth of the egg. And beneath it, faint but unmistakable, was something that tugged at him deep in his chest. The hatchling shook itself, sending droplets of viscous fluid flying. Steam rose where they struck the ice. It flexed its wings, and the membranes hissed softly as they touched the cold. A wildling whispered a prayer to some nameless god. Rattleshirt swore, a raw, shaken sound. "What in all the frozen hells is that?" "A dragon," someone breathed. The word rippled through the crowd. A dragon. Not just a story from Old Nan's lips or a rumor of a Targaryen girl across the sea. A living, breathing thing of fire and shadow, standing in a cavern of ice in the heart of the Frostfangs. The hatchling's gaze swept the ring of wildlings. It sniffed the air, nostrils flaring. Tiny claws flexed against the stone. When it opened its mouth, no sound came at first, only a flicker of red deep within. Then it squealed. The cry was thin but piercing, a sharp, ringing note that seemed too big for its small body. Ghost flinched. Men clapped hands over their ears. The dragon's head snapped toward Jon. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Hatchling and man regarded one another across the scatter of shellash and Qhorin's blood. Jon forgot to breathe. He had seen dragons only in tapestries and carved on the hilts of old swords. Distant, stylized things. Symbols more than creatures. This was no symbol. It was vivid and immediate heat and scent and sound. Its eyes were too bright, too intelligent, for any beasts. They reminded him, absurdly, of ghosts. Only where his direwolf's gaze was an ancient, feral red, the dragon's was molten and new, took a step toward him. The wildlings flinched as one. A spear lifted. Someone's hand trembled on a bowstring. "Easy," Jon said, though he didn't know to whom. His voice was hoarse. "Easy." The hatchling's nostrils flared again. It sniffed the air between them, head tipping from side to side. Jon could feel the heat from it on his face now, a dry, furnace warmth that made the air shimmer. He lifted his hand. It was madness. It was no different from reaching toward a fire. But the urge was overwhelming, the same pull that had drawn him to the egg's shell in the first place. Only now that pull felt more focused, like a gaze turned inward and outward at once. The dragon hissed softly, a sound like steam escaping. Its tongue flicked out, forked and glistening, tasting the air around his fingers. Ghost tensed at his side, a low growl rumbling up, but he did not move to attack. His loyalty warred with instinct. Jon's hand hovered an inch from the hatchling's snout. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the dragon nudged forward, pressing its warm, slick muzzle into his palm. The contact was electric. Heat jolted up his arm, into his chest, into his skull. For an instant, he could not see the cavern. He saw instead something else. A vast, dark sky cut by stars, the sensation of falling and flying all at once, the taste of ash and blood on the tongue. He heard a roar that was not yet born. Then it was gone, leaving him swaying on his feet. His hand still rested on the dragon's head. Its eyes had half-lidded, content, the way ghosts did when Jon scratched behind his ears. Rattleshirt made a strangled sound. "The thing likes him," he said. "7 bloody hells." "A dragon choosing a crow," murmured the copper-bracelet woman. "That's a tale no one will believe." Jon drew in a slow breath. His heart was hammering. The dragon's warmth soaked into his skin, chasing the cold from his bones. The dragonglass at his belt had cooled, its work done. He became aware of all the eyes on him again. Rattleshirt took a cautious step closer, bone cloak rattling. His gaze flicked between Jon and the hatchling. "Mance needs to see this," he said. There was a new note in his voice now, something like wariness wrapped around thin, hungry ambition. A stark bastard and a dragon in the same hole. That's the kind of madness that can break a wall or a king. He jabbed a finger at Jon. "You're coming with us, Crow. You and your little fire lizard. You try to run, we'll find out if it burns as good as it hatches." Jon looked down at the hatchling. It had curled its tail around his wrist possessively. Tiny claws pricked his skin through the glove. Ghost's growl had subsided to a simmering grumble, his red gaze flicking between the dragon and the wildlings with deep suspicion. He thought of Qhorin's body cooling on the ice behind him, of the blood on Longclaw, of the plan that had gone from desperate scheme to inescapable reality in the space of a heartbeat. "I'll go," he said. The words tasted of ash and something hotter, something like the first breath as you step into a forge's heat from a winter street. They took his sword and his knives and bound his hands, but they did not touch the dragon. No one tried. The hatchling hissed the first time a wildling reached toward it, a brief, warning flare of heat that singed the man's fingers. After that, they kept their distance, muttering charms and curses under their breath. Even Rattleshirt gave it a wider berth than pride should have allowed. They dragged Qhorin's body out of the cavern and left it in the snow. Jon watched, numb, as the wind began to cover the ranger's still form with a thin veil of white. He wanted to kneel, to whisper some crippled prayer, but the ropes on his wrists bit tight and the point of a spear in his back urged him on. By the time they reached the wildling camp that night, his legs felt made of wood. The camp was smaller than Mance's great host below, a raiding band's fire-scattered sprawl. Tents of hide and rough wool, a few half-collapsed snow shelters, horses stomping and blowing steam. The scent of smoke and unwashed bodies and meat on the fire mingled in the cold air. They staked Jon near one of the larger fires. Ghost lay just at the edge of the rope's reach, flattening himself in the snow until he blended with it, red eyes never still. The dragon, his dragon, some treacherous part of Jon thought, climbed his chest with a clumsy but determined scramble, turning twice before settling across his lap. Its warmth sank into him. Where it lay, his legs no longer ached. Its sides rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths. Occasionally it would flex its wings or twitch its tail, claws kneading at his cloak. It did not seem to care about the rope on his wrists, or the men around them. Its gaze, when it opened its eyes, went up, to the sky, to the stars emerging between tatters of cloud. "Does it have a name?" a voice asked. Jon looked up. A young woman crouched across the fire from him, elbows on her knees, chin in her hands. Her hair was a wild, tangled curtain of red, fiery even in the low light. Freckles dusted her nose and cheeks. She wore layers of ragged furs, a bow slung across her back. Her eyes, a deep, searching gray, studied him with open curiosity. He knew her, though he had never seen her before. Ygritte. He had heard her name muttered in passing among the raiders, attached to snatches of laughter and argument. "No," he said. His voice came out rough. "Not yet. Not yet," she repeated, tasting the words. She nodded toward the hatchling. "You should name him, or her. Elsewise you'll be shouting, 'Oi, you at it until you're old and gray,' and that'd be a stupid way to talk to a dragon." Jon almost smiled despite everything. "I don't know if I'll live that long," Ygritte snorted. "Oh, you will. Men like you always do. Too stupid to die the first time the world tries." She leaned forward a little, eyes narrowing as she looked at the hatchling. "Never thought I'd see a real one," she admitted. "Our old woman told us tales, same as yours. Dragons and black steel and kings what burned half the world. I thought they were just that, tales. Now look at you. A bastard crow with a monster in his lap," Jon said. "A lad the gods like to laugh at," Ygritte countered. "Or use." Her gaze flicked up to his face, searching. "Did you mean to kill your half-hand?" Jon's throat tightened. The fire popped, sending up a swirl of sparks. The dragon lifted its head briefly, tongue flicking, then settled again. "No," Jon said at last. "But I did it." "Then maybe you're not so stupid," Ygritte said. There was no cruelty in it, only a rough kind of acceptance. Takes a hard sort of courage to choose to live when dying would be easier. "I'd have cut your throat myself if you'd refused. We can't use a crow who'd rather cling to his pride than breathe." She sat back on her heels, considering him. "You know nothing, Jon Snow," she said, as if sharing a secret. "About us. About them." She jerked her chin toward the dragon. "About what you are now." "What am I?" he asked before he could stop himself. Her smile was small and sharp. "That's the tale I want to hear," she said. "And I reckon Mance will too." She rose in one fluid motion, stretching the stiffness from her limbs. "Get some sleep, Crow," she said. "Tomorrow you meet the king. Best you've got your wits sharp when you walk into his tent with a wolf and a dragon at your heels." When she had gone, the camp noises faded into a dull roar in Jon's ears. The dragon shifted on his lap, climbing clumsily up his chest until its forepaws hooked into his collar. It nuzzled under his chin, breath hot against his throat. Jon hesitated, then raised his bound hands as far as they would go. He brushed the back of one finger along the curve of its jaw. It made a low, contented sound, almost a purr. "Skorvyr," he murmured, the name rising without thought from some deep, half-remembered place. It tasted strange and familiar on his tongue, like a word in a language he did not know he knew. "I'll call you Skorvyr." The dragon blinked slow approval. Ghost lifted his head, huffed, as if to say he'd accept this new packmate. For now. Jon tilted his head back and stared up at the cold, clear slices of sky between the smoke from the fires. Somewhere south, a wall of ice stood between this camp and the realm that had never truly felt like his. Somewhere far beyond that, A girl with silver hair and 3 dragons of her own walked a very different road. He was a crow in chains with blood on his hands, a dire wolf at his feet, and a newborn dragon on his chest. The world, it seemed, had decided for him what he was. All that remained was to decide what he would do with it.